here. Who wants to
Yeah, so we
start
have a
off?
guest. Oh, I'm going to start talking because I love when we have guests. So, I am Eric, our co-host. No, I'm just kidding. But we have one of my dear friends and colleagues, Bethany Valenti here, and so she also has her own therapy practice, but also her own podcast. So, Bethany, I want to make sure you get a chance to introduce yourself the way you would like to today.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Bethany Valenti. I am a psychologist in the Cincinnati area, and I specialize in kind of like struggling with challenges in life that are kind of the way I always like to describe it is like you had certain expectations for life, but then you face a different reality and that space in between, trying to cope with all of that and redefining moving forward and what that means. So that often looks like grief, eating disorders, anxiety, perfectionism, ADHD, good stuff like that. That's where I feel like I thrive. Although I was trained as a generalist, so I love working with all sorts of clients.
And my apologies, Bethany. Bethany is like a family friend. Like I've known Bethany a lot of times. It's Dr. Valenti, so
That's
I'm
all
really
right.
sorry,
That's
Bethany.
okay.
You're Bethany to me, but you are Dr. Valenti
I'm Bethany to pretty
elsewhere.
much everybody. I
Yes.
had a
Well,
client today tell me that, like, and this is not the first time, but they're like, "Oh, I was calling all my friends about this recent crisis that I had." And I prefaced with all of them that I will be talking with Bethany about this.
I I mean, I was like, if you say, "Hey, that's fine," then that's fine with me. I just don't like to shortchange people with the
Right.
degrees they've gone and spent years and many hours to earn. So. But we're so glad to have you here. Bethany, one of the things we usually ask some of our counselor friends is like, what drew them to the field of counseling?
Hmm.
What kind of made you interested or kind of led you on that path?
Yeah. So I always kind of like to say it was in my blood. Um, so my mother was a licensed clinical social worker, and my father was a drug and alcohol counselor, and my aunt was a school psychologist. Um, and those are the ones just kind of in the closest sphere that I sort of know of. Um, but I wasn't sent like with any expectations for that. It's just kind of I was sort of raised in a very, emotionally intelligent kind of environment. And I actually knew I wanted to go into a helping profession when I went into college. I really wanted to be a nurse. But it started to just become more and more clear to me that I was just not good at the traditional sciences compared to all the other stuff. And I really enjoyed psychology when I took it. So I just redirected all of my energy toward that. And I haven't really looked back since, honestly. I love working with people.
It's a great answer. Tiffany, you know when we have guests, I get really excited. So I'm gonna do my best to not steal the mic. So is there anything you want to ask Bethany before we get
Uh,
fully in?
where do I start?
No.
I guess one to follow up is like, how did you land in working with the area, the niche and population that you currently work with?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm happy. I'm a pretty open book with this. So part of the reason it's a really major passion of mine is that it has touched me very personally in life. So essentially, when I was 9, my father died by suicide. And then when I was in my first year of graduate school, my mother died of a stroke. And pretty much after that, I was already in all of the studies of everything and didn't necessarily feel like because of my background with my father that I necessarily wanted to like go anywhere in particular. I was actually seeking more drug and alcohol like counseling at the time, not for myself, in terms of like training. But then that happened, and I was learning a lot more about myself, about like where I was a good fit, and I ended up switching to university counseling, which I really loved doing. While I was on internship, they had a grief group there, and I was able to get involved with that and was a part of it for the whole year. and then started a grief group when I went to Miami University, where I was at for 6 years. So I did a grief group for about 7 years straight with different students. And I
Oh,
just really loved it. Yeah.
I'm glad you loved it. I don't know what your reaction is, Tiffany, but I hear 7 years straight of a grief group. Like I like gulped in my stomach, and I was like, "Oh my God!"
My brain went, no.
Well, it
But
wasn't the
this,
same people, to be fair.
yeah.
Like,
Oh, that's fair. No, I mean,
I've
I
been
guess
working
when you
with
said,
different people for like many years,
well,
on
see,
and
when
off.
you said substance use, I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm so comfortable." I was like, that's my lane."
Yeah.
I'm like, and
Yeah.
then you said grief. I was like, "Ooh."
Yeah.
Um, Wow. Well, thank you for your honesty, Bethany. We're really
Yeah.
glad to have you. I mean, it is kind of a segue into kind of our discussion today around the holidays and grief. And so, obviously, those of you listening, Bethany's very much an expert in multiple things. So it was kind of hard for us, honestly, to
To
pick what
pick.
we were
Yeah.
going to talk about today, but this episode will be kind of coming out in between Halloween and Thanksgiving. So we're really excited for this episode, hopefully to bring some support to some people going through some hard things. So, um, Bethany, when you think of grief, holiday
Hmm.
seasons, uh, I know we've talked a lot about this offline on some different things before, but
Yeah.
when you hear the holidays, people are getting excited, where does your brain go? Just for some of those folks that maybe their brain isn't going there.
Yeah. I was touched by it personally, so I think I sometimes do have some of my own reactions, but I have vivid conversations that come to mind. I actually have faces of clients come to mind who talk about, like, when we were in group, how many weeks we just talked about the looming holidays, that they were coming. And if it was the first year after the loss, like, what were things going to look like without the person there? What family members were they going to be spending the holidays with? And what does that look like? Sometimes it would mean that their main buffer person was gone. So, as anyone can relate to, there are challenges that come with like holiday gatherings, with families coming together and everything like that. When you're facing doing that without your family member, without your person, in the same way, that can be really challenging. And that's if it's a family member that's died. So it could be a parent, could be an aunt, uncle, but you could also have like a friend who's gone. And what if you normally like went driving, like, there are
Mhm.
some people who drive to go look at like Christmas lights every year, and you're not doing that with the same person anymore. Like, that's just not an option. So how now have a choice of, do I maintain that tradition without the person, for instance, or do I just do away with the tradition entirely? And different family members will sometimes feel differently about that. And that can change from year to year. So it sort of feels like every year for a while that the holidays are kind of this new hurdle.
Mm, it's well said.
Mhm.
Well, thank you. That's just how I kind of picture it. Is for me, use myself as an example a lot, because then I don't violate anyone's confidentiality and it's just there. But like, so my grandfather just died. I want to say it'll be 2 years, the day after Christmas, actually. Um, and my aunt died and my grandmother died. They all died kind of like within a certain number of like months, honestly, like within a year. And that was a couple years ago. And what happened was, this is not even considering, because I'd been years without my parents at the holidays, but everyone gathered at grandpa's house. Like, he was the patriarch, right? And so it was always, are you doing Christmas this year? Are you doing Thanksgiving this year? And it was a yes or no. And then you would find out like when they were celebrating it, like what day it was, and you would show up or not. And because different states, traveling. But when grandma died, it wasn't really good for grandpa to be in the house anymore. So that was going to be the first year, but he was at least alive. But it immediately just shifted everything of like what the holidays were going to look like, right? Or we don't have a one gathering place anymore. it's splintered by the like kind of next generation down, if that makes sense.
It does. I mean, I appreciate you sharing so openly about your personal journeys and experiences. And I think you've said some really striking things that the holiday season's not a positive feeling for everyone, but there is a lot of songs to movies to shows to just discussion at work or people that, oh yeah, it's positive for everyone. Everyone's looking forward to the holidays. I mean, I'll de-identify it, but I have clients, they get manic this time of year every year
Mm-hmm.
because their routines are thrown off. It's dark, it's cold in the
Yeah.
Midwest. Like, so they hate the holidays. Like they've
Mm-hmm.
consistently hated them. Not
Yeah.
because they don't want anyone to have fun, but like it's not always a positive assumption,
Yeah.
let alone the losses and griefs. But I mean, Tiffany, I guess I'll throw this one to you. Like, why do you think that's the assumption so much that the holidays are always positive and that's the frame most folks are bringing to that?
Because positivity sells. No one wants to like turn on their TV, turn on their TikTok, turn on their YouTube shorts and see boo Halloween, boo Thanksgiving, like ooh sad Christmas. Like it's all like it's Christmas time, it's joyful, it's cheer,
Mm-hmm.
it's all of these like oversold expectations of like it's the happiest time of the
Mm-hmm.
year. In reality, like it's probably the most stressful, if not the saddest time of the year
Yeah.
for a lot of people.
If you don't mind me jumping in, Tiffany, that makes me think of like it's kind of stitched into the makeup of the holidays to begin with. In some ways, like you think about the traditions of why I kind of picture that holidays have been structured around that season because it is kind of like a bleak, dark time and we want to bring cheer. We need to have a reason to have a celebration or party and to gather. And that's if you separate from like the religious aspects of it. But I could get into the, when Jesus was actually born versus like when we decided to celebrate it, historically. Um, Side note,
Which is fair. I mean, they stole the winter solstice
they
from the
did. They stole the
pagans.
winter
So like I
solstice
mean
because they were trying to convert the
they,
pagans, right?
that's
So
I
like,
mean it's what happened. I mean it's
is
like
what is
it's a
okay?
fair
Let's
point.
just yeah. Put put it out there. Just put it out there. So, but if you think about it, like picture like we're trying to inject cheer into that kind of quieter, colder, darker time, and if you're not here for that, then that's a problem, right? We're literally trying to create Christmas cheer. Thanksgiving, even though it has historical roots in our country, is about being thankful. And sometimes, like, we're not thankful when we're in the midst of any challenge. But if someone has died, it's going to be really hard to be like, you know what? I'm really grateful for anything,
God,
you know?
these are good examples. Sorry, I said that out loud. That I
Do
like
it.
that a lot.
Oh.
I said it out loud. I was thinking. I do like that. Because I'll give a hot take. We're in the kind of the middle. I hate the stages of grief. I find them super unhelpful. There has not
Mm-hmm.
been a single patient I have had, or family or friend, where when I'm walking through the stages and get to acceptance, it's ever made sense to them. I
Mm-hmm.
love the ball and the box analogy, button and box,
Oh,
whichever the
one of my
equivalent.
favorites. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
much better if you're listening and you don't know what that is, rather than go through the stages and we have to say acceptance. The ball is
Yeah.
grief. There's a balloon in the box, and when the button is pressed, it is the grief being pressed. And healing means that button is
Mm-hmm.
pressed last, but when it is pressed, it is acute and it is intense, like the holidays.
Yeah.
Love that. So much more honoring and
Yeah.
trauma informed. I don't want to get too spicy, but like there are some things in the world I don't think the word acceptance should ever be used on. Like, or that's like war
Mm,
crimes, human trafficking. Like, I just don't think that works. Not to
for
mention
real. Yeah.
familial loss. So I don't mean to go on a soapbox. Tiffany knows I could get going, but
Soapbox!
it
We're fans.
happened. Um, for the
I'm sure
fans,
that's the name of a
all
podcast somewhere is something about soapboxes because
We
my
have
cousin and I were going to
one.
start a soapbox once and it was going to be called My Cousin's Soapbox and we Googled it pretty
my
quickly
cousin's
and
soapbox.
there were some soapboxes out there
Yeah.
already, so we could not do it.
Um,
We have our mini episodes, Two Therapists, One Soapbox, where we bitch and complain about things. You can always come join us and bitch and complain about things.
I love this. Okay.
I'm just gonna
Oh.
adopt Bethany to help me like bitch and complain about my day.
That's fine.
Always
I
here
mean,
for a good spot of tea, pretty much, Eddie.
I like
Um,
piping hot tea. So, but sorry,
Piping
Bethany,
hot tea. Okay, so let me
you
give
go
you the
for it.
tea, if you don't mind me giving you a little bit of tea on the stages of grief. So there's actually some major
Yes.
misconceptions about those. They're not actually supposed to be in stages. They're not. They actually originally were developed by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross when she was working with people who were actively dying. They were facing death. And it has been translated into people who are facing death in terms of like grievers. Does that make sense? So
Yes.
it's been transplanted over. So it's like, so it originally was for someone who perhaps received like a terminal illness diagnosis, right? Like, and then it has now been like moved over to I'm facing like something that is major, like a loss, right? So essentially, the one of the big misconceptions is that they're not stages, they're not steps that you need to go in. Like you can literally experience, and this is if you like, similar to like what you were just saying, Eric. There's plenty of other analogies. Like when
Mm,
you get into the grief like world, there's so many analogies because analogies are really powerful in the healing period, but also like in this space. So the ball in the box analogy is a really good one. But the 7 stages of grief, like you can bounce back and forth between them all the time. And also, you don't necessarily have to experience all the stages. Like it's not prescriptive,
mm,
it's not a stage, and it's not linear. So essentially, you can be in denial sometimes. And denial isn't actually denial. Sometimes it looks more like this doesn't feel real. Like, that sense of like
mm,
disreality. So the name of the stage doesn't necessarily have to define what it actually is, for one. And then it's kind of representative. So it the model has grown, but it still doesn't like speak to everyone's experience. And like you don't have to do it. Some people don't ever experience depression in the same way, but it also doesn't necessarily represent everything that can happen. Some people might experience relief sometimes after if their loved one has been going through like a really, really painful illness. Like there's relief in seeing that they're not in pain anymore. If the person that has died like was abusive, there's a very, very complex response that you could have, right? Um, and you want to talk about a soapbox. One of the things that can always get any griever pretty much talking is like the stuff that people say to grievers. When you're
oh my
talking about
God.
positivity selling, like trying to package certain things and what's tolerable, we're not comfortable with talking about death. We're not comfortable with tolerating other people's pain. So oftentimes, even if it's well intentioned, it like people's pain gets minimized, gets dismissed, gets like attempted to fix. I feel like I've gotten on my soapbox now. Um,
No, you're allowed. That's what we're here for.
that's what we're
We're
here
very
for. This is
familiar.
actually therapy for me. Thank you. So I'm thinking about the ball in the box analogy as well. So there just to give some people other ideas of what analogies are out there. So there's the stages. If those speak to you, then that's great. Like bargaining isn't always actually bargaining. It can be like you're having like if you're a spiritual person, that could mean that like you're having conversations with God. Like hey, like if I would give anything, like if I could just wake up tomorrow and this would totally be different, right? But I love the pain button with the box. So picture like a box and there's a ball inside and there's a button in there and every time it's a pain button. Every time the ball hits the button, it's painful. Now, when the grief is fresh, the ball is huge. So any motion of the box, that ball is going to bounce up against it. So like picture you as the box. That's how I like to do it. Picture you as the box. You're moving through life, the ball's going to bounce and it's going to hit that button all the time. It might even just stay on that button sometimes. You're just in that space. As you move through life and as grief shifts, the pain button doesn't go away, the ball doesn't go away, but the ball gets smaller. And so it's still bouncing around in there, right? But there will be times in life that it's going to hit that pain button that is associated with grief. And it will feel like you're right back in that first stage, like that you were in before when it was really fresh. But it's not as frequent. Is that
think that's a great way of explaining that. But Tiffany, again, I hog all of our guests, so this is me trying to turn
I'm
a new
also
leaf.
hogging the soapbox. Does anybody else want to get up here?
No, this is your stage. We set the stage for you today. We dusted off all the cobwebs and everything for you.
God, the cobwebs. Was
The
that a Halloween
cobwebs.
pun, Tiffany? It was, wasn't it?
We're getting close.
We're getting
Oh
so
my God.
close.
Tiffany's like done. She's Tiffany's hanging in with us. Oh
Oh.
my gosh. Um, no, I think that's like really well said, Bethany. Obviously, this is your expertise. I'll join you on the soapbox. I don't know why there's cobwebs because I feel like Tiffany, we talk like every day, and every day I'm
Yeah, so it's
pretty
probably
much
been
like
dusted
this.
pretty frequently,
Yeah, or
you
are you
know.
just trying to say I'm a slob? Either way, I
No,
don't
no.
like it. I
I
don't like it.
I personally don't
I
work with a
personally.
lot of grief. So that's why I'm like, I gotta dust off on some of these cobwebs.
Mm.
I like do not have the expertise in grief. I have worked with it, and like while I use the stages of grief, and I always remind people of like these are not chronological, they will never happen chronologically. I didn't know all this background information, but it really makes me curious of in terms of like, and this is probably more of like a research thing I need to do, is like if these stages were founded in people that were like facing like absolute death, do they developmentally and neurologically make sense for people like that are grieving at like all different stages of life?
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying
Probably.
no. I don't
I
think
probably
they do.
not.
My
Yeah.
hypothesis, that's where I'm thinking, but I'm also
Yeah.
kind of like, how would they would be like, I don't even know if you could say like they'd be stages, it'd be like anamorphic, like a, my brain is like imagining like a,
Shape-shifting like
yeah, like a
yeah.
shape-shifting creature, or like how a butterfly goes through metamorphosis, like where it's
Mhm,
so different for every stage of life and the different aspects that you
mhm.
could face based on
Yeah.
the grief bubble that you're in.
No, I think
I'm driving Eric crazy.
no, that's really that's what's really powerful about
No,
that
it's
is that it
okay.
doesn't necessarily
It's
have to
good.
be it doesn't have to be when
It's good.
like it it
I'm so
doesn't matter
sorry.
when the grief like occurred, like when the loss occurred, right? Like you could be a a kid. So like, okay, I'll go back to myself because that's just the most accessible, right? Keep going, Eric. I um
Don't mind me. I'm just coughing up a lung because
cough.
Tiffany has got me giggling. I'm so sorry.
Are you thinking about Animorphs? Like what? Where did we
I
go?
just didn't know where she was going for a second, and I feel like we've done a lot of episodes, so I wasn't sure, but I like your style. You keep me always on my toes, Tiffany. That's why
I
we support each other so well.
love it.
I'm always gonna go down the neurological pathway.
I was kind of thinking that was where you were going, but then for a minute I'm like, is that where she's going? Is this about to get even more spicy? I wasn't sure. So really, I can't wait to hear what our listeners think
I've
about
heard you're the
this.
neuro nerd, Tiffany, from the little bit of the podcast I've gotten to listen to so far. Is that like
Yeah,
it's
we also,
that's where
if you
you're
join the Patreon, I do, I haven't done some in a while, but I do like little breakdowns of the neurological cycles that happen in your brain as well.
stop.
Oh yeah,
Way
Tiffany's the
to sell
neuroscience
it.
expert.
Just sell it. I know. I appreciate that. We need you. I need you.
I need
Hey,
her.
we have some on anxiety and depression. You just copy, paste, share with people.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Um, so I know Eric, you shared with me that this is like kind of at its like base, kind of a trauma podcast, correct?
Yes,
So
we mainly speak to challenge the stigma around topics that relate to trauma, demystifying therapy a little bit.
Mhm.
That's typically
Does
our
that mean I
focus
can
here.
ask the hard questions now?
what?
Um, what? Yes.
So, hard question. This is where I feel bad because we didn't prep her.
Let's go.
If
Oh my God.
someone is going like someone is going through grief, let's say like
Eric.
let's say something not crazy like the loss of a pet.
Okay.
How
subjective.
So yeah,
Subjective.
so loss of a pet, someone is coming to you, they have a loss of pet, but they're also actively going through like domestic violence trauma. How does that complicate or impact that grief process for that person? Are they even able to get into that space?
So I'm gonna pull out the oldie but goodie. It depends. Most likely, I would very much envision that, like, part of what depends is that similar. So okay, I really liken a lot of trauma response to kind of like the TBI, right? What we know about TBI is that it can be really profound, but we don't always know how the individual person is going to react to potentially the same type of trauma, right? Like, it's very individualized. And so that can really translate, in my opinion, to trauma. And that comes through in grief, because I conceptualize grief as a type of trauma. Even if the loss itself was not like the death, like they didn't witness it or anything like that, you know. Um, so so much of that, there is a trauma response. Now, one of the things that we know is that that cannot be processed in the moment, and if there's other things that we need to prioritize, like survival, then that's going to get prioritized and set aside. Years and years ago, in one of my practicums, I worked with a client um, who had a very, very big T, little t, all the T's type complex trauma since childhood. Um, and was that went, it translated into her relationship with her mother, without getting into too many details, but she had a very tumultuous relationship with her mother. Her mother was very like invalidating of all the trauma that she had experienced, even though she like witnessed it. She actually like blamed her for the trauma. Now, um, when we were working together, a couple of things were going on. One, she was living in a dangerous part of town with an abusive partner. Now, this abusive partner in her mind was like the safest partner she'd ever had, because he wasn't as bad as past ones, right? And in the midst of all of this, her mother died. This partner could not understand why she was sad about it, because he was like, you had a bad relationship with her anyway. And like the first thing I said to her, she's like sitting in the office, like crying, like, because that's when she was able to like let it all out, because she was keeping it all inside at home, right? That's not the safe place to let all that emotion out. So one of the things I said to her was like, well, with her gone, there's no possibility for repair. Like, that door is just closed forever. And that was really, really hard, because it touched on past trauma. And she was in the midst of like trying to cope with just getting by day to day with what she was dealing with. So I think whether or not there is, like, for instance, like an active domestic violence situation, I think survival is always going to be like one of those key things that comes up. Um, and because of the way the world treats grief and loss, if there's already trauma going on, you may not have time to grieve it, but sometimes the world just also doesn't really let you grieve it in the way that you may need to. So, for instance, so we've talked about kind of like one really extreme example, right? Less extreme example. I've worked with students whose family member died in the middle of finals week, and they got the call right before they went to take a final, or they found out about it, went and said goodbye to their loved one, and had to finish the semester anyway. Like, so they put it away and then didn't really like, were like, oh, why is this coming up? I thought I dealt with it like last year when they're coming in, right? So all that to say, people don't always choose what they need, but they're making the best decision that they can given what they're facing.
That makes sense
Mhm.
from
I
what
feel like
you're
that's
saying.
the best way I can answer that question. I don't even know if I answered it. Did I answer your question?
It was such a big question. I don't know how you could answer it in
I have
one.
hard questions. This is why we usually prep people, because I like throw people for a
You
loop.
like the deep ethical
I
and
do. Well,
clinical discussion.
and,
Yeah.
and also it's just it's fascinating, like how truly intertwined every facet of mental health is,
Mm-hmm.
and like
Mm-hmm.
how like just slight nuance to like pull it apart, because like you viewing grief as a form of trauma then opens up a whole nother door of like how trauma could be perceived and be processed as
Mm-hmm.
as a result. And also like depending on the person's lens gives us the potential of like, well, this could be grief trauma.
Mm-hmm.
There could be like an overlayer of grief on top of like this already just trauma.
Yep. And I don't know that you said earlier that you were dusting off kind of like some of the grief stuff because you hadn't worked as much with grief. Anytime I've done any sort of like discussion or training, people are like, I don't really work with grief that much. It's often that they haven't worked with death that much. But
Oh, that's
I
good.
would put money down on the fact that you've worked with grief plenty. Like that's probably, so when we're talking about all the different like specialties that I have, grief is in all of them. Like when
Mhm.
we're talking about, like I was saying, like expectations versus reality. Like you have somebody who thought their parent was going to be around forever. Like that's sort of the story that we get told. As you get older, you're supposed to bury your parents, right? It's not supposed to be the
Mm.
other way around. So when you hear the other, like, but the narrative can get flipped on you, and then on top of it, like, what if something else happens and you don't know what's gonna, like, basically trying to think of what my point is and how I'm trying to bring this home. So what I'm trying to say, I guess, is that I don't know. I think I lost it. I don't know where I went. I
Yeah,
I think
lost it.
that
but
just
It's
that
gone.
grief
Yeah.
touches all of us, even if
See,
we're
grief,
aware
yes.
of
There's
it.
always some form of that. I've worked with like eating
yeah.
disorder clients where we had to grieve their past self. Like we grieved the body, like we made space to grieve. Like that's not the body that you're going to live in anymore.
Mhm.
And you can grieve that, but also know that you're making decisions that are more in alignment with your overall health,
Yeah.
right? So that's just one example. Let's grieve the friendship that we had to give up because it was abusive. Let's
Mhm.
grieve the fact that my kid doesn't talk to me anymore, or like I don't just like those kinds of things. Like you have worked with grief plenty. It's just that like when death is in the room and in the conversation, it's like this extra, almost this extra layer of stigma because it's something we can't fix. Like I've had clinicians who I've talked to about it when I was in a training, and they're like, yeah, you're just sort of sitting there with them. And that's kind of the point. Just like we sit with all
Yeah.
trauma, like we can't
Right.
fix it
Yeah.
in
But I
the
think
same
that's a
way.
very important distinction, like that, like even me getting in that cognitive distortion of overgeneralizing grief as just like that specific death, loss of like tangible thing,
Yeah.
versus like where I have worked with like we do grieve our past selves and our future
Yes.
selves and all
I'm
these
glad you brought
other
that one up
things.
because I was like, oh, your past self, your identity. I was like
Yeah,
totally
and
like,
that's
yeah.
something I work a lot with, where like,
Mm-hmm.
grieving your past self, the future self you thought you would be that like is no longer attainable for X reasons. But
Yeah.
making that very clear, distinguishable, like there are many different like facets and faces to grief. And just because like you don't work in one specific one doesn't mean you're isolated from the whole field.
Yep.
Wow.
Boom.
It's just it's like it's a very normal conversation, which is kind of the point, isn't it? We're
Mm-hmm.
trying to have a normal conversation about something
Yeah.
where people do shut down with grief. And yeah, it's just the more we talk about what people treat the holidays like, not everyone. I mean, I'm sure there's some people that are very mindful, have that personal lived experience, have more understanding.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember last time we did this, Tiffany, and we were talking to people, like people had a big reaction to this. Like they were like, well, I'm allowed to be happy. I'm allowed to be excited. And I think it's like, yeah, and also people are allowed to be sad. Like you're allowed to be happy, they're allowed to be sad. There
Mhm.
is space for both at the
Mhm.
table.
Yeah.
But I hear a lot in session about people being kind of, oh, like just come, just come with us, just be. And it's not like it's great to include people. I love the
Mhm.
inclusion, the heart, but you're dishonoring someone's autonomy when you don't let them decide like what their boundaries are and when you
Yep.
decide what their healing should look like. And that's essentially what I think is happening when it's like, no, 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 just come. Like,
Mhm.
it's great to invite them every year, but like if you're pressuring someone, like that's the opposite of healing. Like, how are they
Mhm.
supposed to heal if you keep opening the wounds?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that brings me to kind of like that, like another question that like comes up that, well, doesn't come, well, it comes up often for me, but more curious is how you handle it, Bethany. And like when you are faced with someone who like is dealing with this grief ball and they're expressing like, well, I'm ashamed that like I didn't tackle this in the quote unquote timeline that like society has told me to, or I feel guilty that I'm still experiencing this. Like I think I had someone like 2 months for like, oh, I shouldn't be experiencing this. And I'm like, it's been 2 months, like 2 months,
Mhm. Mhm.
like give it
Mhm.
2 years. um, I'm just curious of like how you manage that whenever you encounter it, if it's potentially as heartbreaking as it is
Mhm.
for me when you experience and people are just like, oh, like I'm not supposed to, air quotes here, on these
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. I think it's so fun because like not fun. The word it's fun to think back on how I have worked with different people on it and how I would explore it on an individual basis versus like how we would explore it as a group if I were in the group, because oftentimes like we could just sit around in the group and like someone would say something like or ask a question like that and then we would like just all look at each other and be like, well, that's bullshit. Like there's no timeline for grief, like or like, I have handouts that discuss like different myths about it. And so if I were working with someone individually, so much of that is like I'm picturing some of the conversations I've had is really like, so let's go with that like 2 month example. I would kind of be saying like I know that like it's really not the best timing, but it also like makes sense. Like a picturing like if I was working with a student or if I was working with a parent, or anything like that of like this isn't always going to feel convenient or timely, and it also like it makes sense. So how can we like create space for you to take that or help you feel like you can manage those emotions as they come up, right? One of the other things that is really powerful for some people too of like I'm so emotional. Like, why am I so emotional? This is not me as a person. Like, it can really affect how they see themselves, how they see themselves like navigating the world. It can change the trajectory of like what they thought they were going to want to do in life. It's really profound. And so I'm thinking of what I often talk with people about is it's like one of the like understandable, sometimes I say understandable instead of like normal reactions is to be very emotionally raw. Like your window of tolerance is not what it normally is, and if you picture kind of like where your normal threshold is, just kind of shave some layers off of that. Like you're not going to be as patient as you normally are. You are not going to be like tears. So I still remember feeling like when I was fairly like thinking like, like I'm getting through most days, I'm fine. But if we touched on that subject, if I like just kind of like let it rise to the surface, it was just like right there and I would just start crying, you know. So it's still accessible. It's not like it's like, oh, like where are my feelings? I really need to like get in touch with my feelings. Sometimes they're just like there and you're dealing
Mm.
with them, right? Um I often will talk about another analogy. Are you all familiar with the beach ball analogy? That's one of my favorites to work with people who are
Ooh,
struggling with like emotions, but like with grief too. Do you know that one?
I do, but I think I haven't used it in a long time. I usually stick with the ball one, the ball in the box.
I usually do the ball in the jar.
Ooh, I want to hear the ball in the
Mm,
jar. Do you want me to do the beach ball and then we'll do the ball in the jar? Because I want to know.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the beach ball analogy is like it's really, you could use this with pretty much any client when who's struggling with holding their emotions or trying to like having those kind of conversations of like, why would I like deal with my feelings? I just want to put them aside, right? So if you picture your thoughts and your feelings as like a big beach ball, and what happens if you push a beach ball underwater? Like
Comes back up.
it comes right back up. Now, so because I love to like milk an analogy for as much as I can, I've really like got this like gone going, is like a lot of people will like shove it down really hard, and that can sometimes mean that it's going to come up in a much more explosive manner. Now, one of the things I'll also talk about is that if you shove it down, the beach ball is going to bounce up in a way, it's going to, like, you can't control that splash. It's going to be bigger than it would have been maybe if you just kind of like let it be with you, right? Or you managed it as it like came up like slowly, or if you like lifted it in a gentle like loving way. um but some people will like shove it down and be like, you know what, I can hold this down here. Like, that's fine. I don't need to let it go. Like, I'm not just going to shove it. I'm just going to hold it down there. Like, that's like really tiring. I'm already like feeling a bunch of tension in my arms, like as I'm like doing this, just because I'm on my couch doing it. And so then you're going to lose control. And when you lose control of it and it bounces back up, you also lose the control of when it's going to come up. And it could smack you in the face. It could smack somebody else in the face. Like, you could splash other people. Like, it likely will come out in a way that is not helpful for you. And so if we like sit with it in the water, then, or allow it to be and navigate it, or like kind of like give ourselves that room, we kind of maintain as much control as is like possible in those circumstances.
Wow. I wish I was smart enough to remember that in this moment to use, but I may have to read that again
I
because I think that's I like how helpful that could be for a lot of
Mhm.
people.
I made it much longer than it needs to be. You could literally just the beginning of it, of like what happens if you shove it up. It'll
No, it
come,
was
shove it
no, I
down, it'll
think you
come
did
right
a
back
great
up, and you lose control over when it's gonna. It's yeah.
I think no, I don't mean that. I really thought it was like well said. I think it's like really good. I'm wondering like if I were listening to this, I'd probably listen to it again, like just another time to but that's how I learn. I'm
Hmm.
sure someone listening to this could learn differently and maybe visually.
Can I hear the jar one?
The jar. Oh, okay. So, do you guys remember, and this might be showing my age, but do you remember the marble jars that your teachers would have on the desk?
Hmm.
How old do you think I am?
I said showing my age here. I was
I'm
ages
not going to
myself.
ask you how old you are on the record, but I'm going to talk to you after this.
I know.
I have
Can we
follow
like?
up.
I really now I'm just super curious. Like, I
Yeah,
feel like we need to compare
I
ages
just was
here.
like, how dare you? Like, well,
Well,
first off,
some people my
how dare
age
you?
don't remember the marble jars, and I'm like, oh, I must be like older or something.
If you're listening to the recording of this, you can't see my
See the
face.
face.
If
The
you're
face is
visually
pretty good.
looking, you see it. There's just a lot of doubt, Tiffany.
Hmm.
Please
Uh,
continue. Please
But anyway,
continue.
you have this jar, you have this jar, which is your life, right?
Hmm.
Every memory that you have, whether it's positive, negative, big or small, you're gonna place in this jar. Marbles are different sizes. And you have like some bouncy balls and things of that nature, like different texture, different thing depending on the memory. And I always tell people, I was like, this is like you taking like a, pool table ball and putting it in with your marbles. It's
Oh,
going to
okay.
take up a lot of your space. It's going to take up a lot of space. You're going to notice it right off the bat. It's going to be like, oh my gosh, why is there a pool table ball in my marble jar? But I always remind them, like, as you're adding more life experiences and more unique experiences, that ball becomes more incorporated and a part of your life. And so it doesn't become so shocking when you do see it and when you do notice it. You can go, oh, yeah, there is a pool table ball in my jar. And
I feel
that's.
like
Like it.
that was a savvy explanation, Tiffany.
Hmm. Hmm. I really like
I'm
that.
proud of you.
The doubt face is gone for any listeners who
But
very
I
worth
guess
looking for
as
that face though. I felt like that was a very meme worthy face. Like I could put you could put a
well,
caption on
Hey,
that.
hey, we don't restrict people from cropping these, by the way.
that goes both ways, Tiffany. I'm just saying. I'm just like, that's fine. But just remember, we used to meet really early, and there are recordings of us meeting
Of
really early in the
me being
morning.
deadpan, like I want to kill the
I'm
world.
not
It's
going to
too early.
speak to it because I'm loyal and protect you. But it's
They're all
out
on
there.
YouTube.
They're all on YouTube.
Oh,
But
I'm
I'm
gonna
here to
go find
protect you.
these.
Well, but I think it's good to, on a real note, I think maybe this is real life. And honestly, this would be kind of similar to at least my therapy sessions with clients where we are going to talk about heavy things, but we're going to laugh. We're still going to be human
Mhm.
beings. We're still going to be real and exist. I don't know if we're meant to sit in this very intense place with this very intense conversation for huge chunks of time with no relief or shifts.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's been my experience with some of those grief sessions. And I don't know if we've said it just as bluntly, but you don't get to pick what your grief is related to or what is
Yep.
that trigger,
Yep.
what is that wound, what reminds you, what is not enjoyable anymore. And so I just
Yeah.
want to say that to honor anyone that may be listening that
Absolutely.
you just can't pick. Um, like and we talk about this in a lot of things, Tiffany, I know, but I just think it's really worth mentioning with grief that like everyone's grief is going to look a little different. There's some similarities, but there's really not when you break it down. And so like I just think when we go on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, there is so much just like bullshit that's
Mm.
like maybe even not real, but also like if your symptoms don't show that way, they don't show that way. I wish my symptoms of anxiety showed with beautiful art. They don't. I
Mhm.
get
Mhm.
irritable, I get stressful, I
Mhm.
am not pleasant. Like that's how my symptoms show up. And so I just think we need to not put pressure on people of grief makes them a better person. And I think about, all those movies where there's this really grumpy person that's so
Mhm.
sad and it's like I mean, I'm not going to go too meta, but like, maybe they're going through something. I mean,
Yeah.
I think a lot of us love Home Alone and
Mhm.
everybody like, oh, this guy's so mean. He's about like he was lonely. He didn't have his family. And
Yep.
I think all of us would be very crusty without connections to those communities we have. So that's my little plug, just for honoring some people because I think I love the access to information for mental health, but I think it can put this pressure of like, oh, well, I'm not a TikTok influencer. Or I don't make art. I don't clean my house and have this thing to show from my stressed out state.
Yeah. It's not the beauty in grief work and grief recovery is not always a manifestation of art per se, right? Oftentimes it's where we find meaning, it's where we find growth, like just like a lot of other trauma work that we do. It's sometimes it's like recognizing the mess of it all and realizing that there's connection to be made. Like for instance, I got to see so much beautiful like connections be created in the group work that I got to do. The community that you get that you didn't know you were going to need, that you couldn't find somewhere else.
Mm. Tiffany, I think I took it back over, and I'm not mad at you anymore about the age comment. So I'm gonna give you a chance to say anything else that you want to say.
I think if I say anything else, we'll be here way too long. So,
No.
Well, Bethany, we want to just thank you for coming on. It has been a very fun conversation on a topic that I like is extremely heavy for a lot of people. So thank you for offering your expertise and encouraging us to honor ours. But Bethany, where can people find you? Maybe first, if they're looking for you as a therapist,
Yeah.
where would someone go to find you?
Yeah. First off, thank you so much for having me. It's been a real honor. I've loved having this time with you. If you or anyone would like to find me, you can find me on Psychology Today. So my first name is spelled Bethany. Last name is spelled Valenti, like Valentine without the NE. And I actually have a website. You can go on Psychology Today and find me there, but I also have a website, BethanyValenti.com. And I do have an Instagram and a Facebook. The Instagram is Bethany Valenti PsyD. So that would be Bethany Valenti PSYD. And that is specifically like grief focused for now. That page on Instagram. The Facebook page is just my business page. So I'm on Google as well. If you Google me, you can find me. And I do have a podcast. I think you've already plugged it a little bit, that will be premiering in November. And
Ooh.
I'm very, very excited. It's called Say Hello to Your Therapist. And I am especially excited because the Eric Stone and the Tiffany Graves will both be featured on my podcast, and I'm super pumped. So
I think Bethany's a natural at podcasting, but this is just, I don't know. She was so like, I don't know, Bethany, I feel like you're your element. So I'm like, maybe we were nervous. I got nervous. That's what I'm gonna say. I got nervous recording with such a pro. So
oh,
no, really,
please.
honestly.
You're
And
the pro.
some of my favorite therapist friends I know are some of the people you're interviewing, Bethany, and you're
Mhm.
wonderful. So I really would
Thank you.
encourage people to take a listen to it. It's really it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm so grateful. Thank you so much, both of you, for coming on.
Yeah, you're very
Yes.
welcome.
Well, and I'll just close this out. Maybe Tiffany was just saying, if you are listening to this and you're still maybe feeling overwhelmed, maybe activated or stressed, maybe just giving yourself that recognition that you're noticing those things right now. Maybe deciding while I'm talking right now on what you will do with that energy. Do you go for a walk? Do you listen to music? Do you reach out to someone? Do you connect with one of your animals around you or people around you? But try not just to sit with that energy. We did not usually give our normal disclaimer, but hopefully, when you see the title grief, you kind of know what the discussion will be. But we appreciate everyone being here this with us. And if you have any questions or follow-up ideas, I'm sure Bethany will be back, but also you know where to find her for therapy or for her own podcast.
Yeah. Thank you guys.